Welcome back, everyone. This is the Generally Bad Gamer again, and I am doing another Tome of Champions 2021 review for Warcry. This time, I'm going to discuss the last of the Underworlds warbands added to Warcry, the Chaos warbands. As with the rest of the reviews, I'm going to talk briefly about abilities, pros I think the warband has, cons I think it has, and anything else that comes to mind. So here we go. The first of the warbands is Grashrak's Despoilers. This is for Beast of Chaos. His ability, I think, is good and it's interesting. It is a quad, though, so you can't really count on having it. But it is pick a visible enemy fighter within 12 inches of this fighter. Allocate a number of damage points equal to the value of this ability to that fighter. Now, the good part is, then roll a dice. On a 2+, that fighter cannot activate this battle round. So it's a pretty good ability in that it could deny an activation. It is a quad, can't really count on having it. If you do get a quad, you might be in a situation where Rampage is better if you just want to kill something, but this is pretty nice. I like this ability, though it's one that you shouldn't really count on. The ability is on Grashrak himself, the shaman that we see there. Now, some of the pros of this warband is that Grashrak himself is a better overall Bray shaman. He has some more hit points. He has a better melee stat. He has access to that quad for 15 points. So you're paying 15 points for Grashrak over a normal Brayherd Shaman. And I think he's worth it if you got the 15 points. The other pro about this warband is that the mooks are pretty nice. They have some pretty nice stats for their points. You get a nice 6-point HP, 6 HP upgrade on the Bestigor Draknar there, so it's a considerably more durable Bestigor. And as with a lot of the Underworld's warbands, this one is a good place for starters. So newbies wanting to get into the game, this is a really good spot to start for them. The cons of the warband is that it just doesn't really add anything new overall to the faction, which isn't necessarily a downside. It's lateral upgrades, some points for upgrades, a better Great Bray Shaman, and that's all fine. Next, we have Magore's Fiends. Magore's Fiends has two abilities. The first one I think is kind of meh, if not kind of bad. It has some uses. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter and roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. For each 4 through 5, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. For each 6, allocate 3 damage points to that fighter. So not the best ability. It could be useful if you don't want to waste an action on killing something that has just a couple hit points left on it, but it's a very meh ability overall. Could be useful, nothing exciting. Now, the triple is amazing. It's the same triple that we saw the Striders warband from Stormcast get. So this is an amazing triple. I loved it on them. I love it on Magore's. Blood Scent is what it's called. Each friendly fighter within Magore's Fiends, with the Magore's Fiends rune mark, within 6 inches of this fighter, and it's the Flesh Hound there. When this fighter uses this ability, can make a bonus move action. So if they're within 6 inches of that Flesh Hound, when it uses this triple, they can all make a bonus move action, which is just fantastic. That can give a lot of maneuverability, a lot of extra speed and distance to them. And even if you use it on just the Flesh Hound itself, it's a more expensive charge, which I wasn't a fan of for the Sepulchre Guard. But on a movement 8 Gorehound, even if you're using it just to get that extra 8 inches of movement off of it, it's alright in that case. But fantastic ability overall, absolutely amazing. And that is one of the pros of this warband, is that the amazing triple helps this melee-centric warband maneuver around and get to where it needs to be. The other pro to this warband is that all the fighters are solid for their points. The cons are the models look like standard Khorne models, which if you're really into Khorne, that's fine. If you're looking for something different, don't know why you're playing Khorne. So this is an odd opinion thing, but I don't know. I'm trying to find cons to this warband. They all look like Khorne models. They all are Khorne models. But really, they're a great add to any Khorne warbands. They are fantastic. There aren't really many downsides to this little warband. Next, we have Garrek's Reavers. some more Khorne mortals. They have 4 abilities. This is by far the most abilities that we've seen that's unique to one of these Underworlds warbands. The first one is good. Add half the value of this ability rounding up to the move characteristic of this fighter for the next move action they make this activation. Once again, for a melee-centric army, additional move is good. The second one is Decapitating Strike. Add half the value of this ability rounding up to the number of damage points allocated by each critical hit for the next attack action made by this fighter, this activation that has a range characteristic of 3 or less. It's fine. It's debatable whether this or Onslaught are better. If you only get one attack action, this is nice. So if you have to move up and then attack and you have a high double, this could really spike your chance at putting on some massive damage. So it's fine. The next one is a triple Frenzied Attack, and it is usable by the... Which guy is it usable by? It is usable by the guy on the upper right with the chain on his axe. It is allocated a number of damage points equal to half the value of this ability, rounding up to all visible enemy fighters within 3 inches of this fighter. It's fine. It's alright. It's not going to do much damage to things around you because it's only half the value of the ability, but it is a triple. Could help clear out a couple severely wounded guys or some mooks low on hit points, something like that. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it. Probably won't get used all the time, but could be alright. The fourth ability that they have is a quad, and once again, it's fine. This fighter makes a bonus attack action. In addition, count the number of fighters taken down this battle round, and add the total to the attack characteristics of the attack action. So it is called Khorne Cares Not, because the ability doesn't care whose fighters have been taken down. When you use this quad, you just count the number of fighters that have been taken down, and the model using this ability gets that many attacks. If you're already in melee, this is better than Rampage, if there have been any deaths at all that battle round. But once again, it's a quad, so you don't really want to count on it. It's just a nice bonus if it comes up. Now, any of the fighters in this warband can use it, so that's a nice thing. It's not limited to just one model. So, it's fine. Now, the pros. That's a lot of abilities that they're adding to the Khorne Mortals. 4. There are no other warbands, I believe, that have 4 abilities of the Underworld warbands, so that's pretty awesome. Some nice variety there, some more options for your Khorne Mortals warband. Or if you're taking them as an ally, some nice options for that. The other pro is they are all move 5 and pretty solid stats for their points. The move 5 is nice because if we look at Magore's Fiends, who are the other mortals, the non-Gorehound models are move 4, so them being a little quicker and then having them a double that also increases their speed is nice. They're all really solid for their points. So, once again, pretty good warband to add to your collection if you like Khorne. If you like Khorne Mortals, they are fantastic. Cons, still just guys that run up and smash stuff, but that's the way of Khorne, so nothing wrong with that. If you want Khorne, we've got Khorne for you. Next is Eyes of the Nine. They are a Tzeentch Arcanite's warband. Now, they have 3 abilities. The first one is Meh. It's a double. It's split into Brimstone Horrors. A fighter can use this ability only if they have 1 or more damage points allocated to them. Set up 1 new fighter with both the Eyes of the Nine rune mark and the Minion rune mark, which would be the Brimstone Horror from this warband, on the battlefield within 3 inches of this fighter, then this fighter is taken down. And the only fighter that can use this ability is the Blue Horror. So you pay the points for the Blue Horror. If during the game you want to, you could turn it into a Brimstone Horror. Not super useful on this because you're killing a model to get another model. If you need another activation, it can get you that other activation, but overall, it's the least exciting of the 2 splits from the Tzeentch Demons. The one that splits a pink horror into 2 blue horrors is far more exciting and far better. The next ability we have is fine. It's a triple. The Zangor that we see in the front there with the great sword can use it. Add half the value of this ability, rounding up, to the number of damage points allocated by each hit and critical hit from the next attack action made by this fighter, this activation, that has a range characteristic of 3 or less. I like this ability a lot on Seraphon. The Seraphon Temple Guard or Saurus Guard, whatever they're called, have it. Actually, all the Saurs have it. And it's awesome for upping damage. If you have triple five or triple six, that's going to be 3 damage added to each hit and critical hit. He does only have 3 attacks, so in Strength 4, so you have to be hidden with him. But if you need some extra damage out of pretty much nowhere and you have that triple, it's a pretty good use on him. It can spike his damage quite a bit. The third one is Empowered Bolts. It's fine. Once again, another fine quad. Can't depend on quads. This fighter makes a bonus attack action. In addition, if that attack action has the Blast Rune mark, add half the value of this ability, rounding up to the attack and strength characteristics of that attack action. So, all the fighters that have a ranged attack, so everything in this warband except for the Zangor with the Great Sword, has a ranged attack with the Blast Rune mark. This quad is probably not good for any of them except for Vortimus, the leader, which is on the left there, because his damage profile is 3-6, everybody else's is 1-3 or 1-2. So with Vortimus, you are potentially able to deal lots of damage. If you have a quad 5 or a quad 6, you now have 5 attacks at strength 6 that are 3-6 damage. That's good. On the rest of them, it's not as good. It's just because their attacks are 1-3 and they're not doing very much damage for a quad. So it's fine on Mortimus or Vortimus, but it's a quad. I can't say that enough. Don't depend on your quads. Pros, there are some big damage potential from 2 of the models, the Zangor of Greatblade and Vortimus himself, with their abilities that triple in that quad. The cons, however, that many of these models suffer from the increase of points to units of ranged attacks. So most of these units are higher points than what they would probably be considered worth because of the range attack tax. And the range attacks on a lot of them aren't really great. So I don't know if any of these are worth the generic or more than the generic versions of them from the Arcanites. Not sure this warband's the best. Still an alright starting point, but probably one of the weaker warbands added from Underworlds. Next, however, we have the Wurmspat. Now, the Wurmspat's ability, their one ability, I put meh, but I don't like it at all. I don't think it's super useful. It's probably not going to turn the tides of the game much, and it can only be used once. It is for the leader herself, and it is a fighter can use this ability only once per battle. This fighter makes a bonus attack action that has the Blast Rune mark. So for a double, once per battle, she can make an extra attack action with her Magic Blast ability, which is the standard Magic Blast ability. It is 3-7 range, 2 attack, strength 3, 3-6 damage. It's not great. If you could use it once every round, it would be a lot better and maybe make her worth her points. But once per game, it's probably not going to accomplish much. I'm really disappointed this is their only ability. They had the chance to make some sweet Nurgle Mortals to really help out Nurgle Mortals who are struggling in Warcry right now. And we get a 205 point sorcerer with a disappointing ability. And a normal sorcerer is only 165 points now. So you're paying 40 points for a few hit points, a point in toughness, and a double that's not great. I'm not sure that's worth the extra 40 points over the normal sorcerer. And the other 2 models don't have anything special about them. They are pretty much just your big, fatty Blight King Nurgle models. If you don't own this warband already, I don't think I would bother buying it just to use in Warcry, because this isn't a good starting point. You're still going to have to buy more models, and those more models you're going to buy are going to be another box of Blight Kings and some of the Fly Riders. And if you buy a box of Blight Kings and the Fly Riders, those right there make your warband. So these are not needed, and these are super disappointing. GW did the Wurmspat so dirty that poor Papa Nurgle has to take a shower to wash off the disgust. Ugh, I'm sad. These guys make me the saddest of all the Underworld warbands. Next, we have the Dread Pageant. They are for Slaanesh mortals. Their ability, once again, another quad. The Chaos Underworld warbands have gotten lots of quads. It's fine. This fighter makes a bonus attack action. In addition, if either this fighter or the target fighter has any damage points allocated to them, add 1 to the attack characteristic of that attack action. If both this fighter and the target fighter have any damage points allocated to them, add 3 attacks to the characteristic instead. So, if you're already in melee, it's better the rampage if one or both of the fighters are damaged. Yep, that's what it is. The pros: this Underworld's Warband adds some serious power to the Sybarites. So Slake Slash, the Slaanesh beast that we see on the lower right there, the Slangor, that's the word I was looking for, has an amazing damage profile. 4 attacks, 4 strength, 3/6 damage. He's good. Then there's Glazette, who is the one right above him with the pole arm. Her damage profile is pretty nice. 2-inch reach, 4 attacks, strength 3, 2/5 damage. She's 105 points. So that's not bad at all for 105 points. And she's unique. I don't believe they have any models like her that are on foot with the pole arm. So she's pretty cool. Overall, nice warband to add some more damage options to your Slaanesh. Cons, really, there aren't many. The Bliss Barb Archer probably isn't worth it over a generic one. But other than that, if you're going to play Slaanesh Mortals, these guys are a good pickup. Next, we have Spiteclaw's Swarm, the Skaven Underworld's warband. His ability is good and interesting. Now, there are other factions that have this ability, but they are 2 of the undead factions and the new Tarantulos faction. It's a resurrect ability. For the Tarantulos, they can only resurrect the spiders. Nighthawk can resurrect any of their models. The Soulblight Gravelords can resurrect their minion skeletons. In Spiteclaw's Swarm, it's pick a friendly fighter of both Spiteclaw's Swarm Rumark and the minion Rumark that has been taken down. Set up that fighter once more on the battlefield, wholly within 3 inches of this fighter. The fighter set up on the battlefield no longer counts as being taken down. Remove a number of damage points allocated to that fighter up to the value of this ability. So that just heals them the value of the ability, really. I like it. It adds another little dimension of play to Skaven, so I've got that in my pros. So a new mini playstyle for Skaven. You could take Spiteclaw and 3 of those mooks that we see there have the minion Rumark and they can be resurrected. So the one at the top left, the one at the top right, and the one at the bottom right are all the ones that have the minion Rumark that can be resurrected. So you can't build your whole playstyle around it, but it's a nice little sub-theme for Skaven that you could toss in. The stats on the models are also pretty okay, especially since they can be brought back. One of them, the Lurking Skaven, the top right one, has 5 attacks, which is pretty awesome. The rest of them have 3 and 4 attacks, but the fact that you could just toss them out as chaff to be killed and then plan on bringing them back a little bit later is pretty sweet. Cons, as I said, the resurrection ability isn't enough to lead the whole warband on and build a list around. It's kind of just a little sub-theme that you could add to your list. Not the most exciting models visually. They're all very basic for Skaven, and the way they will play outside of that resurrect ability is also pretty straightforward and basic. Set them up, hit stuff, they die, have Spiteclaw resurrect them. But I think they're a sweet little addition to the Skaven with that ability. I would say they're definitely worth a pickup, and they could be a good starting point if you pick these guys up and then maybe a couple bigger models or another box of Plague Monks or something, you could have yourself a functional list. Next, we have Khagra's Ravagers. So they have 3 abilities. The first one I think is fine. Some people don't like it, I know. It's, once again, not one of those great abilities, but I think the range on it takes it from being meh to being fine. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 9 inches of this fighter and roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. For each 4+, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. For each 1, allocate 1 damage point to this fighter. So you can hurt yourself if you roll 1s. It doesn't do a ton of damage, but Slaves of Darkness lack a lot of range. They don't have much range at all. And this is a nice ability that'll just let you finish off a runner. The 9-inch range is kind of what makes it fine for me. The next ability is a triple. I think it's good and interesting, possibly even awesome, and just in the realm of being sweet. Pick a friendly fighter with the Khagra's Ravager's rune mark within 12 inches of this fighter, and it's a sorcerer that can use it, so the sorcerer that we see on the right middle there. Remove that fighter from the battlefield, and then immediately set it up anywhere on the battlefield within 6 inches of this fighter. So the sorcerer can pull anybody else from Khagra's warband here from 12 inches away and then reset them up within 6 inches. This ability is sweet. I think the Cypher Lords have a similar ability where they can teleport people around, and it's great for if you need to split the sorcerer from somebody else to go take on 2 objectives. If you get the one objective that the other model's on, you could teleport them over to the sorcerer for backup, just for moving slow models around, and they're all movement forward, so they're all pretty slow. I think it has some awesome potential, and it's just really interesting. The other ability is a quad. It's fine. Quad, again, on a Chaos Underworlds warband. This fighter makes a bonus attack action. In addition, if this fighter is within 3 inches of any objective markers, add half the value of this ability to the attacks and strength characteristics of that attack action. Once again, it's an alternative to the Rampage if you're already in combat, that if you're within 3 inches of an objective, you get bonus attacks and bonus strength. It's fine. The pros of Khagra's Ravagers is very solid stats for the points. The 2 Chaos Warriors and the Sorcerer, I like them a lot for their points. And of course, as I said earlier, there's a sweet, sweet teleport ability on that Sorcerer. The biggest con of this warband is really that Khagra is, I think, the least useful model of them, though she's still not too bad for her points. But I have run these guys already with the Godsworn, and I took the Sorcerer and the 2 Chaos Warriors, left out Khagra, and then combined them with some of the Godsworn, and the warband worked just fine. So, overall, I think it's a solid warband, a good buy if you like Slaves of Darkness, some sweet new abilities added to the faction. Last, we have Godsworn Hunt. Like I said, I have made a combination of Slaves of Darkness army with Khagra's and these guys, and it worked out pretty well. For these ones, I left out Jagothra, the one with the javelin in the back. But we'll get to that here in a second. So, 3 abilities. The first one is good. It's a double. And it says, pick a visible friendly fighter with both the Godsworn Hunt rune mark and the Beast rune mark. So that's Grawl. Grawl is the one that has those rune marks. That's the dog there. So it's basically pick Grawl. And if he's within 6 inches of the fighter using this ability, Grawl can make a bonus move action. The model that has this ability is Olo, the archer that we see there. So you take Olo, you take Grawl, you move them around, and at some point you could give Grawl an extra move action, and Grawl is a move of 6. I like it. I think it's good. Grawl's squishy, but he's going to be there to just kind of get you the extra maneuverability, so the free move is great. The second ability is fine. Interesting. Some people hate it. I've had good luck with it. I like it, but since other people don't like it so much, I'm putting it in the fine category. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 12 inches of this fighter and roll a dice. Until the end of the battle round, subtract the value of the roll from the toughness characteristic of that fighter to a minimum of 1. So for the triple, you pick somebody within 12 inches of Thedra herself, the sorcerer in the front. She's the leader. And then you roll a die, and they lose toughness equal to that roll. This ability helped me go against Bone Reaper Stalkers and take them down. She was taking them down to 2 and 3 toughness pretty easily, and then her range attacks and everybody else's attacks were able to lay on some damage then. So if you take them down to a toughness 2, which isn't too hard with the ability a lot of times, her basic blast magic attack, which is normally fairly underwhelming, becomes pretty good. That strength 3 on it, you're wounding a 3 plus on toughness 2 model that you've enfeebled, and it's doing 3 and 6 damage. So I like it. I think it's a good support ability. The last one is fine. It's another quad for the Chaos Underworlds warbands. This fighter makes a bonus attack action, in addition, at half the value of this ability, rounding up, to the attack characteristics of that attack action. Another alternative to Rampage if you are already in melee. We've seen these on most of these warbands for Chaos. They really like to give them all a bonus attack action with some sort of extra attacks. Pros. This warband adds new model types for Slaves of Darkness. The Hound and the Archer, and some cheaper guys that can hit kind of tough. Olo, I believe, is the only true range attack, besides the Magic Blast attacks, that Slaves of Darkness have. I talk a lot about how I love cheaper range attacks because you can pot shot stuff and take out runners. And if you're taking Olo, you might as well take Grawl, because Grawl is a 75 point move 6 model. He's very squishy, but you give him bonus move with a double from Olo. So those are 2 new model types that we have for Slaves of Darkness. Abilities, the double and the triple at least, can work well to flip the tables on an opponent. Once again, I like those 2 abilities. Some people don't like Enfeeble. I found it useful. I think it just all depends on who you're going against. Cons, all of the models in this warband are fragile, especially for their points. You're looking at 10 hit points at most for all the mooks. Grawl himself is 6 hit points, and Thedra for 180 points is only 18 hit points. So they're all really fragile, so you have to be careful with them. This is why I like to comboing them with Khagra's Ravagers, because the 2 Chaos Knights from that are a lot chunkier, and they are able to get in the thick of things better. All right, that is a review of all the Chaos Underworld warbands, and that completes all of my reviews for the Underworld warbands that are coming to Warcry. Check out my other videos if you want to see reviews of those other warbands from the other Grand Alliances. If you haven't already, check out the Warcry Reddit, and on the Warcry Reddit will be a sticky note, for the Warcry Discord. Go visit the Warcry Discord. It is a great bunch of people on there, and if you like discussing anything Warcry related, it is a great place to go. All right, everybody have a good time gaming. I'm out.